What's up, friends? It's Ryan, the Friendly Designer, and welcome to another episode of our Friendly Podcast. This podcast is all about us exploring what it means to be friendly. So today, we're here with Eduardo, the Friendly Wall, Robert Grasso, Assistant Athletic Director at La Jolla Country Day School, football coach, former high school teacher, middle school teacher, lower school teacher, and my teacher, Mr. Grasso.
Love it. So good to see you. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
We're very excited to have you here today. I want to cover with you, we're really inspired by childhood. One of our partners is a pediatrician, Dr. Yoshi. So we're always thinking about how we can extract lessons from childhood and apply it to our serious and mature adult lives.
Love it.
I want to talk about some of the problems we might be facing in childhood today. Kind of used to be about play. Now it's about screens. Is that wonderful? And talk a little bit more about what the role of a school can be in our communities in 2024. But
sounds great.
Let's start out with this. This is how we like to start our conversations.
Okay.
What does friendliness mean to you? Open-ended.
Okay, I love it. It's a good question. I actually have thought about this a lot, working with kids, adolescents, high school athletes. To me, friendliness is about positive connections. I am a big believer that we all thrive on positive connections.
Okay.
And that those people who go through their days with as many positive connections as possible live a more happy, friendly, fulfilled life.
Okay.
And when I talk to my students or the athletes that I work with, I give them the story of how blessed I am. In my life, I wake up first thing in the morning, my wife smiles at me, good morning, positive connection number one, okay? I see my son, we're making breakfast together, good morning, great to see you, how'd you sleep? Positive connection number two. Drive to school, get out of my car, there are students everywhere, there's teachers, there's coaches. Good morning, Coach Grasso. Boom, 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 positive connection. I share an office with 3 other coaches and we're always laughing, joking. So like my day, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. I've had so many positive connections.
Got it.
And to me, it's all friendly and exciting. And to me, people who don't experience that, rather than feeling connected, they're disconnected. And I think that leads to loneliness, frustration, depression, etc.
Well, what I think is interesting there too is you kind of, it's not just about connection for you, but a specific type, right? Positive,
Right.
Open-ended, exactly what constitutes
Right.
a positive connection. But I wonder, in your mind, what makes it a positive connection?
To me, it's a positive connection can be verbal, okay, the way we speak to each other. It can be nonverbal. It could be a smile. I always tell my students I'm that goofy guy that walks around campus and smiles at everybody. And a lot of the people I'm smiling at have no clue who I am. And so I know they're wondering, who is this goofy adult who just smiled at me? But I don't care. I'm like, my philosophy is, if there's one person who's having a rough day or maybe hasn't had anything positive happen yet, maybe that one smile is gonna be helpful in a little tiny way.
I like it. So it's really easy to have a positive connection. It
doesn't
require much. It can
Good
literally
morning
just
is a
be
positive
smile.
connection. A smile is a positive
Good morning.
connection.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias is a very positive
working
connection.
on our Spanish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I love it. That is a nice response to what is friendliness, because it's on one end, everyone knows what it means to be friendly, right? I hope it's a very common word, but I think the more we can explore different nuances and how people see it, the more we can better understand and try and design that into our everyday lives.
For sure.
So let's shift. I want to talk to you about the plethora of lessons you've learned from hanging out with kids, but I want to start out by us kind of getting into that mood. So let's just crawl through this tunnel real quick. I'll go first.
There we go. Still got it.
Some bear call drills. All right, now we're in that mentality. We can really talk about the wisdom.
We act like kids. Let's do it.
All right, so tell me, what's the wisdom of children and what can we learn about them for being friendly?
Well, I would say the wisdom is the innocence of children and their open-mindedness to try new things.
Openness.
I think we start off life more open, and unfortunately for some people, we become a little more jaded and a little more closed as we get older. This morning on campus was one of our traditions that we have called Circus Day. Our PE coaches dress up like clowns. They act like little kids
Fun.
with the kindergarten class, and they play games with them. And it is that watching the kids interact with their beloved PE coaches who are dressed as goofy clowns, and how excited and open and crazy they are, and big smiles. And it's, as adults, it's sad if we lose that, that feeling of wonder and silliness and excitement. And I think kids, they're just so good at that. They're so less inhibited, and I think it's wonderful to watch.
It's interesting. I was at a dinner party yesterday, and some people were picking my brain on how do you get adults to play and what are some playful activities we could do. And there was one person of the 8 people there that was really just firing with ideas. And then I find out, he has a 4-year-old niece and he's been hanging out with her for the last 3 days.
Yep,
so I'm like, he's fresh.
Yeah, he's fresh.
He's on his game. He knows what's going on. I like the open-mindedness and the kind of not so much inhibition lesson that you applied towards kids. We had Joshua Church on recently, who
one of my favorites,
another former classmate of ours.
Yeah.
And when I asked him, what's friendliness mean to you? He said it's an open-mindedness and openness.
I would agree 100%.
And feeling free to connect with people. Yeah. Do you have any specific stories that you can think of, whether you were teaching or coaching students in lower school, where you're like, that's just really sweet how these 2 students became friends, or the 3 of them, or some activity where it's like, you wouldn't see that in a group of adults, but I wish that you would.
Yeah, I think that the thing that's beautiful about kids is that they seem to connect with each other very quickly. So you watch a group of kids who don't know each other very well, and they just jump in and they make it happen.
Yeah.
And adults, unfortunately, sometimes can be a little more guarded and a little more self-protective, and those type of relationships might take a little longer to develop.
What role do you feel like play has in that? Because I feel like with kids, right, like maybe one of the reasons that they are really fast to become friends is they're just in that silly, uninhibited mind state, and they're just having fun together.
Absolutely.
You need people to play with.
Yes.
So we try and really encourage a lot of play. Like, it's like, what is friendliness? Well, for us, like, kind of the main ingredient is play. Both in our spatial environments and in the way we kind of behave.
Yeah.
So is that something that seems true to you?
It's so true. If you think about the way we structure a schedule at school, the younger you are, the more playtime there is. Recess,
damn right. That's why
recess, PE,
my
recess,
favorite classes.
Mine too. And as the older you get, the more you lose that.
Yeah.
And by the time you reach high school age, now you've got to play a sport. You got to get into my world after school, because it's not happening much. And what I watch from our high school students now, because those are the ones I interact with the most, when they do have free time, they're piling into the gym and they're grabbing basketballs and they're playing.
They're having fun.
They're looking for opportunities to play. So that desire to play, which leads to those connections and that friendliness, it's always there, but the older they get, the more challenging it is to find those opportunities.
So that's a nice segue into some of the challenges that I kind of see, and some other people have been talking about. It doesn't take maybe an expert to see them with childhood these days, right? Are screens.
Absolutely.
And there's an author of mine that I like named Jonathan Haidt, and he writes about how we've gone from a play-based childhood to a screen-based childhood. And already as you get older, right, we start to intentionally eliminate play from our lives, right? You have more recess when you're younger, and you just get less and less and less. And then you're playing a sport when you're in high school. It's still playing, but not as much. Then maybe you're playing in college, and then after that it's over.
Right. Unless you really work hard to make those opportunities.
LeBron James has had a really good streak of play.
Yes.
You started teaching, I think, in 2000, right? Or 1999?
Yeah, 1999 was my first year at La Jolla.
There's no iPhones back then.
No, I know.
I still remember my middle school, some people had the Razor phone, and that was like the cool thing. So we never even had like smartphones in middle school.
No, it is a challenge for sure. I mean, I just talked about seeing students pop into the gym in their free blocks. The other side of that are the students I see when I walk around campus who are sitting. I'll watch 10 students sitting together at a table, and not one of them is speaking to each other. All of them are on their phones. They're playing games. They're looking at social media, and that's obviously a huge concern. That always makes me sad, to be honest, when I walk by that crew and there are multiple students and no one is talking.
It's crazy because I feel like it's challenging to compete with, right? These iPads, iPhones, not to sound like, like I'm 90 years old. I'm 29. But they're addictive. They're really compelling. So it's like, how do you compete with that? How do you try and, because that's something that we've really explored, right? So one of the reasons that our sculptures are brightly colored and super fun and like different and stand out is because we see ourselves as, hey, we have to, get people's attention who are right here the whole time.
For sure.
Right?
First of all, I love it. I love that you're doing that because I do think it is a challenge. For us, in an education standpoint, I think the goal is to try to create as many opportunities for play as possible. And you made a good point that like after school sports is one type, but what's really missing now that we want to try to encourage is the opportunity for students to play their own games, make up their own rules, not have a bunch of coaches and
make up your own rules. You couldn't be
know?
preaching my language more.
So,
you couldn't be preaching my language more.
And that is happening less and less and less.
Yeah.
Everything is structured now. I mean, this is I know I sound ancient sometimes, but in my kidhood, we'd just go run out into the street with a wiffle ball bat and a bunch of wiffle balls and play a game. You don't see that as much anymore. So
the difference between that too, and like, one of the things I like about your kind of idea of we need more open-ended play as opposed to just that kind of structured, regimented, football, basketball practice, which is great, but maybe not sufficient in and of itself, is so I hate it when people say, why did you design this basketball hoop to be 9 feet high instead of 10? Or why is this pickleball court 16 feet wide instead of 20 feet wide? Or, why are you changing something? And I'm like, one, these rules are getting changed all the time. If you look at like, the NBA basketball court, didn't always have a 3-point line. That was a new addition. Yeah. There's spatial updates to it all the time. We're making this stuff up. And let's use that as our advantage because we're just trying to play and have fun. We're not trying to go to the NBA. I might be, but most people aren't, right? We're not trying to go to the NBA. We're not trying to be professional pickleball players. We're trying to exercise and socialize with our friends. So one of my favorite things that we've designed recently is, we bring cornhole into a lot of our designs. We have this circular cornhole table. And instead of having one hole, there's 2 holes. So it's not a rectangle, it's a circle. And there's not one hole, there's 2. And the reason we do that is twofold. One, it's visually interesting and stimulating. We're competing with the internet, right? So it's like, whoa, what's this brightly colored, squishy, circular cornhole thing? I'm intrigued. And 2, more importantly, is it creates the opportunity for us to cooperate and collaborate on how are we going to play. Yeah. Because it's a different scoring system. We need to communicate with each other in order for us to have a good time using it. Right. So I really like how you've been discussing more open-ended playtime because I do think that process-oriented structure has a ton of value.
I agree.
And unlocks
100%.
people in other spaces too. Academic life or whatever else it may be.
For sure. Absolutely. I agree 100%. There is something to be said for the type of structured, competitive sports we have after school, but there absolutely is not enough of the unstructured, open-ended, no adults in the room athletics.
They complement each other.
For
They
sure.
both have a ton of value.
For sure. Yeah.
So I want to pick your brain and kind of hear from you. What do you think the role of the physical school can play in 2024? I bring this up because my buddies and I recently, as you know, have been playing a Wednesday basketball game at the gym at La Jolla Country Day. And I love it. I mentioned earlier I'm trying to go to the NBA. It's helping me out.
Great. Excellent. Glad we can help.
Waiting on that growth spurt. But
me too.
Yeah. We'll both go to the NBA together.
Yeah, exactly.
Once LeBron retires, there's going to be an opening. But these are huge investments in our communities. And I feel like there's more room for them to bring more value to us, right? Like I don't know if it's having more opportunities for like parents to come in and hang out. Like should there be like a parent like basketball league of the kids that attend the school or the alumni, or having kids, like maybe there is that open-ended playtime from 3 to 4, like after school, where they're welcome and encouraged to stay. But what else can the school be doing to create stronger communities, especially in the face of the more loneliness that we have, screen-based childhoods, and some of the issues that we're struggling with right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that, and because, like you mentioned, because we are competing with the screens for people's attention, we need to create, like you guys are doing, visual opportunities for people to get excited to do new things. And we have a school with beach volleyball courts, big old football, soccer, lacrosse field, baseball and softball fields, the gym. There is a lot of tennis courts, pickleball courts. I mean, we have the opportunity to set an environment that encourages positive interactions and a lot of play. And I think you're right that there's a lot more that we can do. The idea that you and your fellow alums are coming back on Wednesday nights to play warms my heart. I mean, I love that stuff. And you're right, there is more we can do. There's more we can do to encourage alums to come out to the field, to get the parents out there. When we do after school clinics for the little kids, the lower school students, lacrosse, soccer, whatever, softball, the kids go nuts. They love it. And to walk around the fields and see no screens and a bunch of laughing kids running around having a blast and interacting, little ones with our high school students.
Yeah.
It is so special. I mean, it's a unique environment because we have kids that are 3 years old all the way up to 18 years old. I mean, we have a really great opportunity to put those kids together and see what happens. And when it happens, it's really powerful and really positive. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really good.
So, do you think something like this would add value to Country Day? Is there...
Absolutely. Anything that is visually stimulating and gets kids excited to play. I mean, it has to be the right setup and something that they truly gets them excited. We put in a rock climbing wall, and for the most part, it sits dormant in the gym. I'm not sure why, but so it has to be... Good, good. I'm glad someone's using it. It's interesting that it's not bringing in as many people as we thought it would. So it has to be the right format. But I mean, kids are looking for things to do after school, during school.
Why do you think the rock climbing wall hasn't succeeded in kind of captivating their imaginations and attention?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think maybe for those that are at school, we've gotten used to it. Because when people come to our campus that are not part of our Country Day community, I mean, they jump on it like that. They get all excited. So it still has value, but it doesn't seem to be grabbing our current community.
Can I give you a theory of why?
Yeah, I would love it.
Twofold. Not visually interesting enough,
Yeah.
and not nearly open-ended enough.
Okay, perfect.
So it's cool for me when I go there once a week, because it's nice for me to jump on for 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But there's not that much I can actually do with it.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of limited. So I can see, and so if someone else comes who hasn't been there before, oh, cool.
Yeah, it's brand new. It's something new.
After 2 minutes, they're
done.
well, unless you're really interested in rock climbing,
I think that's a really good point.
Kind of have my fix.
And now that you mentioned it, there's also very little interaction. It's a very solo activity.
Yeah.
And the activities I like are the ones that get people interacting with each other and connecting with each other and having to talk to each other and communicate with each other.
Yeah, I think maybe if you could, and I'm just speculating right now with a rock climbing wall, have it be so there's more cooperative efforts encouraged from the design.
Yeah.
Maybe it's okay, you have a rock climbing wall and you're making your own paths each time. So part of it is setting up.
Yeah.
Where are you going to place the holds?
Yeah.
And it would be fun if you were painting them sometime or some stuff like that. It would just be kind of a joyous activity.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right? I'm trying to captivate that. So I don't know. It's interesting to me, and obviously we're really eager to get some of this stuff at schools because we really believe that we've come up with some interesting ideas for adults and kids to spend more time with each other, more quality time with each other, and more play-based stuff that we're kind of missing. Yeah. I guess one last question for you, we try and close with this, is there anything specific that you like about Friendly Futures and what we're doing, or any other comments you would like to offer?
Absolutely. I love your concept. I think that, unfortunately, we live in a time with, in my opinion, more division than we've had in the past, and a little less trust and friendliness.
Yeah.
And a little less collaboration and ability to compromise. I talk to student athletes about going into relationships assuming good intentions. And I think sometimes people struggle with that. What you're doing is you're trying to create an environment of positivity and friendliness and inclusion, communication, play, and that we need a lot more of. I think we naturally want to have positive relationships.
Yeah.
But people become guarded and self-protective and are not willing to open up. And you're creating an environment where people can have fun together and let their guard down a little bit and be a little more silly and more playful. And to me, that leads to positive connections.
Right on.
So I love what you're doing. So
I appreciate it. We have some good takeaways today. Trust, open-endedness, and kind of process-based play. But the main one for me is trust and how we can continue to foster that. So, Mr. Grasso, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan. I am
hopping
so
in.
honored to be here, and I love what you're doing. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.